Hello friends, welcome back to this tutorial series of Jetpack Compose. And in this tutorial, we are going to learn about state in Compose. So we'll be seeing what is state, how to use that in our Compose UI. So this is one of the important concept in Compose. So make sure you watch the video till the end to grasp the full concepts. And for now, let's jump to Android Studio. So here I am in an Android Studio project. I have created a separate class as a state practice, and here we'll build a simple counter application. There will be one button and we'll click on then there will be counter value starting from 0 on the same button, and when we click on that the value should increment. This type of simple application we are going to build to understand the concept of this state. So for that I'll make one preview function of composable. So let's name it as a state demo. State demo. Okay, and let's take a box here. I'll give the box modifier equal to fill max size and content alignment dot content alignment to alignment dot center. Okay, and here I'll make a one button here. The button should implement on click lambda, and here I'll add one text composable which will show the value of counter. So I'll take a global variable here, private var count. Will initialize it as a 0. Now let me speed the screen to show you the UI, and here I'll write show background equal to true, and it is rendering. Just give a second. Yes, now you can see the button here, and for this button we'll write just a value of count equal to $count. Okay, so this button will write count equal to 0 because it's an initial value. Now in the on click, what I want to increment the counter. Okay, I'll write count plus plus. Okay, then what I'll do, I'll click on this one, then this count will be incremented by 1, and this text should display that count 1 2 3 4 and so on when we'll keep clicking on this button. Now let me start the interactive mode, and when I click on this one, but this is not working, this is not happening. Why? There is an interesting reason behind this one. Isn't it like that this on click lambda isn't getting fired? It is getting fired and the value of count is actually getting changed. But how the compose works is, whenever there is a change in the UI, the compose needs to re-render this UI, and this re-rendering is called a recomposition in the context of Jetpack Compose. So this text composable should be recomposed to show the latest value of count, but it is not happening. Why? Actually, the way compose works is, whenever there is a change in such a variable which is getting used anywhere in the compose UI, then it should be notified here that hey, its value has been changed, you need to recompose this one. But that is not happening. That is not happening because if you take a look at this count variable, it is just a primitive type int, that is integer. Then this int type has no any mechanism to tell the compose that this value has been changed and this needs to be recomposed. Well, for this to work, we need to use a different version which is provided by the compose, and that is actually called a state. We initialize it as a mutable state of, and we'll pass an initial value here as a 0. As it is an integer value, it can give us a suggestion to prefer mutable in state of. We can replace it here, but as soon as we initialize it like this one, now this is a compose state. It has the ability to increment the variable as well as to notify the composable that this text has been changed and you need to recompose the relevant part. And that's mechanism it has, that's called state compose. So if we hover on this one, now it's a beautiful int state, and we can no longer increment it like this. We need to refer value, int value. You can normally write it like a value, but as in an initial value, it can give us a suggestion to better it to use like an int value. So count dot int value, and we need to do it here as well. Otherwise, you are seeing it is giving the reference of the class. If I just, as soon as I made this change, then you can see the count equal to 0. The normal UI is getting shown. Now let me run this interactive mode again and try if it works now. And yes, it started working. Now you can see the updated value of the counter. Now what is happening behind the scenes is when we click on this button, then this on-click lambda gets triggered, and this what is doing it's in on-click, it is incrementing countdown any value, it is plus plus. It is incrementing the value of the state, and as soon as it gets incremented, compose this value let's notifies the compose that hey, this value needs to be changed. So compose, what compose does is it looks for where this value has been assigned, has been used. So here it comes hierarchically here, and in the text composable, it finds that okay, this value, this count value is used here. So I need to recompose this text composable, and it does it. Behind the scene, these things happen, but we don't have to worry about this one. This compose text already take care of this one, and we get an updated value here. So actually state is basically any value that can change, but it can also notify the composable that it needs to be changed. It needs to be recomposed. So that is the actual concept, basic concept of the state. Now this works, but this is a global variable as we can see. So there can be multiple functions here. So it's better practice to, as this count variable is only getting used in this variable, in this function, then it's better to declare it in this function itself. So we can just copy it here from here and paste inside this function. So there is no harm in that. But as soon as we put it here, now we are getting an error here. That error is something different. So let's hover in that and see. Creating a state object during composition without using remember. So there is one block of code that is called as remember. So I'll let me explain what does it mean. It needs to be it wants us to wrap this with the remember block, just like this, and now it doesn't complete, the complaint goes away. Now what that means, actually, as I have said, when the state changes, then this composable function can be recomposed any number of times. So as soon as the state changes, the composable function gets recomposed. There is no limit on that. Compose does it automatically. But what might happen, that let's say we have assigned this variable count as a 0, and we have incremented this value some, or done some perform some operation on this value anywhere in this your hierarchy. Now if the compose wants to reflect the changes on the UI, then it will recompose, it will recompose this whole function, and while recomposition, all the functions will be getting triggered sequentially, and so as this function as well. So if you just write without this remember block, then the value again will be set to 0, and we'll see no effect on the UI, because this statement will be getting executed again and again. We will be incrementing the value, and we this after recomposition, this thing will again setting this value to the 0. So we'll be getting inconsistent results, and that's why it is recommended that to use the remember keyword. Now what the remember keyword does, it does what it does is it caches whatever the value it has been assigned at the starting, it caches that value, and at the time of recomposition, it assigns the cached value instead of this raw value. So that's why it remembers the value. That's why it's called as a remember block. So this is the function of the remember block. Now there is one more function, that is remember savable. So what it does is it will do all the things as long as the device is in portrait condition. But when we are rotating the device in the landscape mode, then this, let's say we have incremented this count variable like 1 2 3 4 5, and now we have rotated the device, then this value of count will be again 0, because this remember can't survive the configuration change. As soon as the configuration is changed, the value which is stored in the remember gets lost, and it will assign the default value instead. So there is another version of remember, that is remember saveable, which is able to cache the value even if the configuration is changed. Now if as I have incremented value as a 6, and if I rotate the device, the value will be still kept as a 6 because internet is saves this value in the bundle, and we know that in the bundle the value gets saved get cached across the configuration changes as well. So this is how this remember savable works. So when you want to keep the state intact when even if the configuration change, then you should use remember savable. Now another thing I wanted to show in this video in this state hoisting. So what is state hoisting? As you can see, I have already created a separate file, separate class named as state hoisting. So I'll just write a class state hoisting practice, and here I'll create another function, compose function, state hoisting demo. Okay. So now in this, I just want to use this inbuilt functionality, use this as we have already uh, given as we have already made all the structure here. I just wanted to reuse it, so I'll just call it here what is name, state demo. Okay, state demo. Okay, it is not able to get it. uh, Let me try removing the class. Okay, now it is able to get it, but okay, it is private. I need to change it to public. Okay, now you are able to see the state demo, and let me refresh the UI preview. Okay, sorry, you don't have the preview notation. And after re-rendering, you are seeing the same result. Let me do it here. Show background as a true, and you will see the same effect as before. Now, what I do, I'll just create another button here. So what I wanted to do now, this will increment the value one by one by clicking on this one, and I wanted to create another button below this one which can reset the value of this counter. So how can we do that? Let's see. This is another button, but we need to take a column for that one. Column, and in the column we'll declare both of these so as to get them one after the another. In the button, I need to implement one click. Here in the text composable, I'll just write reset counter. Yes, it will show only one button because we are okay. We have applied modifier full max size here. Okay, let me try removing it, and we also don't get this content alignment as well. We will set alignment in the column. So horizontal alignment, alignment dot center horizontally, and vertical arrangement, arrangement dot center. Now both of these will come to a center. Okay, you can increment was one. Okay, so just like this one. So I want to increment this counter when I click on this increment count. Okay, but I want to do that from this second class, from this another class. This class, but this class don't have any reference to that. So how can I do that? So here we are managing the state internally. So this is actually a composable which can manage its the states on its own. So we want to hoist the state. Uh, we want to take the state out of this composable and pass it as an argument. So this is called a state hoisting, and we should be able to navigate. We should be able to change and handle the state from this composable, from outside of this main composable. That's it. We what we call as a state hoisting. The state of this composable getting hoisted to another, and from outside the function is able to modify the state of the composable. So that is that concept we are talking about. So let us see how we can do that. For that, I just need a reference to this count so that I can implement that. Here I'll first remove this count, Instead, we'll make a count variable that is int here. So okay, before that, we can just write his by to make it as a, to use a delegate. So if we now hover on this one, this is just type of int, so we don't need to write int value here. We can remove it and we can refer this count just like it is an integer value. So if you can hover on this one, it is shown as int. Internally there is a delegate which is giving us a direct int value. So instead, what I'll do, I'll just get one count value here. So in the parenthesis of the state demo count, that will be on 8, and it will be, now it will be used by this one, and we'll be removing this count. Okay, now let me check what is it. Well, cannot be reassigned. Okay, as this is a value, we cannot reassign it. So this is also one problem, that this is the count variable, and as we are passing it as the parameters, and in a kotlin function, kotlin kotlin function, whenever we pass any argument to a function, then it is always a var, so we cannot change it anywhere. So this is also one other problem. So we need some type of mechanism to, when we click on this one, to increment the this count should be incremented. So how we can do that? Let us discuss this all this is one by one. Now I have cut the state from here and paste the count state here. So we got an access here. So we can increment the count from here, from in this another class state hoisting practice. And in this, now it is asking for the count, so we can pass this count. Okay. Now what I want to reset the counter, that this is counter, this is the button, and I want to reset the counter to 0 once I click on this button. In this on click lambda, I need to perform this operation. So for this one, what I'll do, I'll go to state practice again. So instead of directly incrementing it here, what I'll do, I'll pass one lambda here. Let's say increment counter, and this will be a lambda parameter, and I'll just trigger this increment counter. Now it don't have any issue with this one, because this composable only knows that what we want to do. On clicking on this button, we want to just call this function, and this function is actually callback, which will be able to handle here. Now we also need to implement this lambda increment counter. In the initialization of this class, we are using this increment counter. So this count value we have passed to this function, and this increment counter is a lambda. Now whatever we want to do, we can do it from here, because when we'll click on this one, the control will go there, and from there it will give us a callback, and in this callback we can handle the increment operation. So I'll just write this count plus plus, and it will handle the rest. It will do the work. Now in the resetting, now let's try running and check if it is working as we expected. Now I'll just click on this count, and yes, the value is getting incremented. So what is happening if I click on this one now? So as soon as I click on this one, so this is the constructor actually here we have called. This is actually a composable column. This is the one button state demo. Actually this is the one composable, and in this we have passed the initial value of the count and the increment counter, that is a lambda function. So we have passed this. Now this will go here, this value is here. Now here is a box in this composable, and here is a button in this composable. In the inside the button there is a text which shows count colon this dollar count, and whatever the value is passed to this function, this is got, and this is will be shown here. That's why it is showing a box, a button, and in the button there is a count equal to the value of count. Now, when we click on this one, what is happening? After clicking, we are passing this lambda as a function parameter to this state demo class. And if we go to this state demo class here, we are using this we are just calling this functions comes here, and we are just calling this function, that is it is getting triggered a call as a callback. So if we control click on this one, we land it here, and if we control click on this one, then we can see it is getting triggered here, and that's where the count is getting incremented. That's how all these things are working. The next thing I wanted to do is reset the counter. So as soon as I click on this button, I want to set the value of this count to 0. So I don't need to do anything. I'll just set count equal to 0, and rest will be handled by the compose. Because this count is not a simple variable, this actually a state, but we are able to directly assign it to 0. We are seeing in here by because we have used this by as a delegate. So let me stop and reinitialize the interactive mode, and I'll just click on this one. Yes, now I want to reset the counter. I click on this one, and yes, the counter gets reset. Now how this is working? There is simple mechanism behind this one. When I click counter variable, now you are able to understand how this counter is getting incremented. And when I click on this reset counter, we have this separate button here, this reset counter, and in the on-click lambda is getting triggered, and here we are setting count equal to 0. This as soon as this count gets assigned to different value, now this notifies compose that this state has been changed and needs to recompose. Whatever the composables are using this state, we need to recompose this one. So this count, we are passing this count state inside this one. It is getting here, and here we are now in the text composable, we are using this value of count, and thus this text composable gets recomposed, and we are able to see the latest value, that is the change value, that is the 0 value after we click on this reset counter. So these all the things, this is how all these things are working behind the scenes. This concept is called as the state hoisting, and it is always considered a standard practice to hoist the state somewhere else, because this is the composable function, and we should be able to handle the state inside this compose from outside the from anywhere outside, so that it is so that it should be whenever we need to modify, we only need to modify it here in this class which contains the state, and we don't need to do anything on this composable. So this is about how we can use state in Jetpack Compose, and how what is state hoisting. We have learned all these things in this video. So I hope the things are now clear. If you still have some doubts, you can put your doubts in the comments box below. I will try my best to answer those. Or alternatively, you can also join a WhatsApp group of our YouTube channel if you want to get your queries addressed from other your peers or directly from me. If you like this video, then please click on like, share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you will be stay updated whenever a new video is published. We will meet in the next tutorial with some another interesting topic. Till then, goodbye.